Hey there, introverts and deep thinkers. Welcome to Introverts Unmuted, the podcast where we prove that quiet doesn't mean invisible and deep thoughts deserve a mic. If you've ever felt drained by small talk, mastered the art of sneaking out of the room, or wished the world understood the magic of solitude, this is your space. We're diving into everything from navigating social energy to embracing creativity, confidence, and the unique power of being an introvert. So get comfy and let's turn up the volume on our quiet confidence. I'm Hansel, and this is Introverts Unmuted. Today I have Kim with me. Welcome, Kim.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. So Kim is a somatic leadership coach that helps HSP and neurodivergent women business owners create that calm, steady, sustainable progress in her business that honors their sensitive systems. I absolutely love this because we need to honor ourselves so much.
Yes, more of that, please.
So how did you get into really somatic work and working with neurodivergence?
Oh gosh, that is a long winding tale that I will try to make as concise as possible. But the long story short is that I am a doctor of physical therapy. Can't say was because I no longer clinically practice, but still licensed doctor of physical therapy. And it's one of those things, feel like I earned it. I did, so many years of schooling, doctorate education, then 13 years of clinical work as well on top of that. And I just kept waiting to love it, and it never really landed in that space for me. And I got really, really, really burnt out doing that work. At that point in time, I didn't have a context that I was a highly sensitive neurodivergent person as part of really the large part of reason why that was so challenging for me, and introverted as well, very introverted. And I was having to see, 15 to 30 clients in a single day. I say clients because I'm so used to saying clients now, patients at that point in time. And so I would be seeing, 5 patients at a time, doing manual work, doing Therex at the same time, balls flying by my head, music on, fluorescent lights, 10-hour days, documenting through my lunch. It was just a very high-paced, fast-paced environment. My coworker had that many patients in the room as well. Everybody's juggling everything. And I just reached a point where my introverted, highly sensitive, neurodivergent system started breaking down with the level of sensory input I was getting all day, every day. And I would come home and I wouldn't be able to socialize with friends. I had no gas left in my tank. I really could just veg out and stay on the couch. And I started to have mysterious health symptoms crop up. I really started to think that I was going to have to take long-term disability from my job because I got that burnout. And at that point in time, I decided to quit my job with no safety net lined up. I backpacked around the world by myself for 4 months. I started in Iceland. I ended in Myanmar, which I'm really grateful that I got to travel there because it's not even open for travel anymore. So it was a cool opportunity. And during that time, really my goal was who am I? What do I want to do? What would be a fit for me? Because I have a feeling that this isn't it. And at the end of that time, my business was born. And so that's how my current business, Kim Kimball Coaching, was born. And then it's really been a journey to figure out, which is what I do and help people with now, right? Of how can I build something that honors the me that is true and the sensory needs that I have, the way that I work best. How can I build something that is going to pour energy into me and instead of constantly feel like it's extracting energy out, so that working feels like a joy and a pleasure and something that I want to do rather than, oh my gosh, this is a slog that I have to get through and I'm just exhausted at the end of it, right? And I found quickly that a lot of neurotypical business advice that are for people who are extroverted or aren't highly sensitive, that was me trying to follow those quote unquote formulas were leading me to the same place as, working as a physical therapist in those type of environments. And so it really did become this journey of, okay, I can't do things in the stereotypical way. I need to do things in a way that works for me, and really breaking the mold on that. And of course, that's what I help people do now as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You talking about your physical therapy, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed. Just hearing it, being in that space, I completely, agree that we have been told this is what you need to do, and this you just do it.
Yeah.
But that's not it. We can break that mold and really go, what do we need? How can we listen to ourselves and honor what our energy actually is, so that it's divided throughout the day for everyone, and not just like completely drained. And some days, yeah, you are going to have drained days, and that's okay, but understanding why you felt that way and what you can do to recharge.
Absolutely. Yes.
So what are ways that us as neurotypical introverts, all of these things really, we have so many strengths. How can we use these strengths to honor ourselves from this sensory standpoint?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the first thing that comes to mind with what you're sharing here is, first of all, I would really encourage folks that are listening to kind of know your sensory profile. Know what things are draining for you and your sensory system, and what things are bring you energy, right? Most of us, I know this sounds kind of like, well, yeah, of course, but most of us haven't put a lot of awareness and focus on that, and even realize that it's things that are just kind of running in the background or running subconsciously. For example, I didn't consciously have an awareness that, overhead fluorescent lighting was really draining for me sensory wise, or that all of the noise was really draining for me. But those things took a lot of energy for me. And I have a hunch that a lot of people are introverted because they are sensory sensitive, right?
Mm-hmm.
There can be this need of like, you're more sensitive to energy, you're more sensitive to others' energy, you're more sensitive in your sensory system to your environment, et cetera. And that can make you have this desire to, I want to close down, I want to protect my energy because so much is taking so much energy from me, right? So being aware and conscious of what are the things that are the energy drainers for me, and just giving some examples for myself. Like I said, the fluorescent lights, I am very sound sensitive. Like I cannot work with noise. I cannot work with sound. I have these headphones on, if you can see video, for a reason. I can't, my kiddo is upstairs. If I hear things going on upstairs, I'm trying to concentrate. That will not happen. So knowing what those things are for you, making them conscious, and then also knowing what the opposite is, like what brings you energy. Like for me, soft lighting, I drive my husband a little bit crazy because we are not a big light household, because I cannot do the big lights, So it's like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
we have the Einstein light bulbs in our house that we turn on when it gets dark. That feels really cozy and soothing to my system. Another example is one-on-one conversations bring me so much energy and so much life. And I can actually function a lot like an extrovert if I am with someone in a one-on-one conversation that I'm really enjoying and that is very intellectually stimulating for me. That will bring me a ton of energy. But group settings and large settings with a lot of people or a lot of noise, it ends up being a sensory thing for me as well, is just something that is very draining to me. So when you apply that to a business standpoint, right, like a intense or large networking event, probably not going to be what I choose to do to grow my business, not going to be the thing that is thriving where I am thriving and working best. However, I have my own podcast. Being on podcasts like this is great for me because this is a one-on-one conversation. This is someone where I can talk to another business owner that is very aligned, where our businesses, have places where they converge on a Lyme topic that is is intellectually stimulating for me. That's wonderful for me, and I'm happy to have these conversations, and I don't leave this conversation feeling drained, right? Another way is, I talk to people sometimes that they're very aware that being on Zoom calls and things like that throughout their day is something that's really draining for them, for their sensory system, having to be on camera, things like that. Like, okay, cool. Knowing that, how can you work with that? Do as much as you can asynchronously. You don't have to do things in the way where you're live on a Zoom call, right? I do so much of my business asynchronously. I know, Amber, that I've seen that you do asynchronous coaching days as well. We live in a day and age where if you box yourself into, well, it has to be done this way, and you just assume that you do it that way, you're likely going to end up being drained rather than consciously making a choice of, okay, I'm noticing that I feel depleted in my energy after I have Zoom calls. And either you can cap it at a certain number of, I notice that 3 is my max for the day, or 2, or even 1. I can spread that out throughout the week and then do everything else asynchronously. For my podcast episodes, the pre-recording and all of that, I do all of that asynchronously. I do not do any pre-recording, Zoom calls or anything of that nature. And it's so funny, but when I break the mold on certain things, inevitably I have other business owners come to me and they're like, oh, this is the best idea. I don't know why I never thought of this. This actually works really well for me too, as a business owner, right? So I will stop there because I've talked a lot, but yeah.
Yeah, and I love how we need to start with ourselves and understanding where we are and understanding what is working and what is not working. And then we can go from there. So I always say you have to start with yourself first before you go out and try and do other things for other people. You need to understand yourself so that you can work more efficiently and more effectively. And understanding, okay, this is what I need to be doing, and this is how I'm going to market my business. I love one-on-one conversations as well. These light me up because I can then create that meaningful connection with that person instead of showing up to a group of 100 people where I feel so lost, confused, and I shrink back, which doesn't do anything for me. So, it's really understanding, hey, that's not working for me. How else can I do it? And we have to remember, in the online space, there's not really rules. You can figure out the best way for you to do it and then go and do it. And like you said, other people are going to come up and be like, oh my gosh, I love that too. Let's try and work something out. And I think that's where we can start breaking the mold on the extroverts that have said, hey, this is how you need to do it. Well, there's a group of people over here going, hey, guess what? I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to be quiet about it, but I'm doing it. And that's where the power is.
Yeah. And, I just want to share, obviously spot on to everything that you're sharing. And I think the rub in that, the friction, comes from the fact that we do live in a society where extroversion is what is prized over introversion, and loud is prized over quiet, and neurotypical is prized over neurodivergent, and so we have these, essentially, we have these internalized beliefs about what we quote unquote should be doing, right? And that's really where a lot of times I find that people don't even examine those things. And then they're just going along with whatever they feel like they've been told that they should do or have to do in order to grow a business. And then it can feel like, well, who I am and who I'm created to be feels at odds with what I feel like I have to do in order to be successful in business. And I happen to believe and have seen, and I know that you do as well, Amber, that it's really when we most honor ourselves that we're going to be the most successful, not just doing whatever it is that we think we should be doing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And when we stop doing what we think we should be doing, we're going to come more in alignment and actually do more things.
Absolutely.
Because then we're going to be and we're going to call in more people when we say, hey, this is what I do and this is how I do it.
Yeah.
And then, it feels so much better and our body then starts to relax because we go from a very heightened sense of going, well, I got to do this. And there's a war within myself because I don't feel like that's right, but everyone else is telling me that that's what I need to be doing. And when we break that, then it's like, you can breathe.
Yeah, that internal resistance that you're speaking to there is so important. And I think people write that off as something being wrong with them. And it's something that they need to, like you said, they need to be at war with, they need to fight with, they need to push through. This is all the languaging that I hear all the time. And instead, what if it's just a signal from your body? What if there's wisdom in it? What if it's actually telling you something and pointing you gently in a direction that would be more aligned and, as you're saying, ultimately more powerful for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So it comes back down to what you were saying is you have to listen to yourself. We have to take that time to slow down, reflect, and really listen to our bodies and listen to what is trying to tell us, because many times we ignore it and go, oh, well, it's fine. But when you start listening to it, you will actually pick up on patterns within yourself and go, that's why I'm acting like this. This is why I want to nap at this time because I'm doing this. Or this is why I want to doom scroll at this point because of this. So when you really watch, listen, and reflect on your own selves, you can see the patterns and then you can start breaking those patterns.
Yeah. Yes.
So what are ways that we can, start breaking those patterns? We've sat back, we've reflected, gone, okay, I know all of these are my sensory standpoints and I'm going to start changing it. But then next week, I am back to falling into those patterns. What are ways that we can really be more sustainable within that?
Yeah. So the first thing that comes to mind based on your question is I had a friend, a fellow neurodivergent business owner, say this, and it's really stuck with me because I think it really helps me to remember the heart of what I believe the answer is to your question. And that is to stop negotiating against yourself. So if you are finding yourself kind of back in these patterns, really asking yourself the question, have I fallen back into negotiating against myself? Or am I just being radically honest and accepting of the fact that I'm an introvert and I need to do things a bit differently than the extroverted norms? In my case, that I'm a highly sensitive person, that I'm a neurodivergent person, right? Or am I negotiating against my capacity, my limits, my time that I actually have available as a 2-year-old toddler mom, right? Because ultimately it's when I'm negotiating against these things and I'm resisting them and I'm fighting them and I'm wishing that they were different, that's when I fall back in those patterns. Then I'm like, oh, I'm resentful, I'm angry, I'm overwhelmed, I'm frustrated. And it's because I'm negotiating against myself. I'm not actually radically honest and accepting these are the current limits of my capacity, right? I'm not working with that capacity. I'm working against it is the long and the short of it. I'm not working with my body. I'm not working with my energy. I'm not working with my unique blueprint of how I'm made. I'm working actually contrary and against those things, right?
Yeah, I love that. And talking really about like asking yourself, am I negotiating here? Or is this, radically being honest? I think that is such a key question that we can almost ask ourselves every single day is go, what is this?
Yeah. Am I actually accepting my current limits? And I think that there can be, at least for me, because I'm somebody who introverted, highly sensitive, neurodivergent, and yet also highly ambitious. I don't know if any of you or any of your listeners can sort of relate with that intersection. But that intersection can feel like a really challenging place to be, because if you are a highly ambitious person, but you don't have any of those other things going on, it doesn't feel like you're capping you're not as limited, right? Your ambition doesn't feel as limited. And for me, I have to make sure that my ambition is within the confines of my biological limitations. Yeah. Because my ambition in my mind isn't limited by my body's limits, right? But my body is limited. My body is a finite being, for at least for this point in time, right? So honoring that and recognizing that instead of that being a failure, coming to see how, when I do honor that, first of all, my energy tends to expand when I honor it. This is just a biological law, right? Of when we honor our capacity expands. But there's also what I think of beauty in accepting our quote unquote limitations as such, is that we really learn what is the most important. It wasn't until I was super limited in my time when I had my son, where I started being able to really focus on putting all of my energy towards the needle movers in my business, the like 20% of things that give me the 80% of output. Mm-hmm. And until then, without those limits, it's like I'm just kind of like running around and putting out all these fires and spreading myself thin. And why is this not working? Right. So instead of looking at, okay, my limits, and I'm only going to have one-on-one meetings instead of networking events with hundreds of people, and therefore I'm going to have a smaller impact. Instead of looking at it as a limit like that, like look at the clarity and the resonance and the power that comes through impacting that one person more deeply and profoundly than the 100 nearly not at all, right? Yeah. And so just wanted to bring that forward as well.
Yeah, I really love that. Is that when we decide to go, this is what my body is capable of, and this is what my mind's capable of, and allow them to meet. My youngest many times has issues. He has a fear around the school bus. So mornings for us can be difficult. And I have to understand that that is what he has right now. There are tools we are using and getting him there, but I get to take him to school. I still will drive him then. Does this frustrate me? Because then I'm like, well, I just lost like an hour of my morning because I got to take him and he's been crying and it's a meltdown. But I have shifted it to, I get to hold space for him, because before that, I have held space for myself and been like, I know that it's going to be a higher sensory morning of his needs. And so my needs need to get met first. So I make sure to have my coffee, understand, get ready for the day, and be like, guess what? I don't start my day until after 9 a.m. And have really put that into realization so that I can be there for my kids in the morning, because that's when they need me. And so when we are able to go, oh, hey, this is what I need. And then I'm like, oh, I have lots to give to you because I am calm. I am relaxed. I am in myself, so I can give. And that goes into your business too. When you are filled and calm, then it's a lot easier to coach clients and to chat with people, even one-on-one, and go, yeah, I have energy to give to you.
Yeah. I actually just led a call in one of my groups about this very topic, that I think that we can fall into the trap as practitioners of thinking that the skills and the tools that we bring in our coaching relationships, our client relationships, are really what provides most of the healing for people that are in our spaces. And I would argue that it's your presence, that it is your grounded presence that is the most healing for people. It's your ability to stay centered in your center, to stay sovereign, to stay in your own energy, and to be a healing, grounded presence that is then a mirror and a reflection, a clean mirror and reflection to that person. Because let's be honest, most people in their lives experience so little of that. That if we can be in that space, in that sovereign presence, I say, that is so potent. And I believe that you can feel the difference with practitioners that are in that space. So that's a wonderful point to really talk about, of like, how are you coming into your calls? How are you coming into your business? And a lot of times, if you're working and moving from like urgency or the shoulds, or I have to do things in a certain way, and then we are working contrary to our own nature in our business, you're, running it like an extrovert or someone that isn't a highly sensitive person or neurodivergent, you're going to be overwhelmed, and that is going to impact your energy and your presence with your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the way that you talked about just being grounded and having like your presence can be so potent when you are clear, when you feel so good, because then you feel good. And the energy that you are putting off is, I'm here, I have things to say, but I'm also here to hold space for you in that, in whatever you need to say. And that is, as you said, so potent, especially in the online space when it can feel a little bit more like distant because, we're doing a post or we're doing this. And to really still show up, people are like, well, we can see your energy. And yes, we can feel your energy in the words that you're using within your content or within the messages that you're sending. Are you sending back to back to back messages consistently? You're going to burn out, because as an introvert and highly sensitive person, that's not for you.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Was there anything else that you kind of wanted to bring up around, leaning into these strengths around, being neurotypical and highly sensitive person, introvert, all of these things?
Yeah, I think the other thing that I want to say that I've been exploring a lot in my spaces and just making a lot more, like, how certain things come into focus at different point in times in your practice. And the thing that's come really into focus for me right now is how linked shame is with our ability to honor ourselves and the way that we are wired in our businesses. And so to expound on that a little bit more, we are so often don't realize how much internalized shame we have around being different, right? The difference can be as simple as, I'm introverted in a world that prizes extroversion. I am highly sensitive in a world that is not sensitive at all. I am neurodivergent in a world that is neurotypical. Whatever your difference is, right? It feels like the world is really wanting to stamp out difference and to make us all the same and to not prize difference. And throughout our lifetimes, a lot of us have, whether it be explicit or implicit, internalized, well, this difference is wrong. This difference makes me less than. This difference makes me deficient in some way or insufficient in some way. And, I've started saying this, is that it is going to be impossible to build a business that honors your sensitivity, your neurodivergence, or your introversion if you are still ashamed of your sensitivity, your neurodivergent or your neurodivergence, and your introversion.
Yeah.
And so really starting to look at and get honest, again, this radical honesty is a theme here of, am I on some level, even subconsciously, still ashamed of these things about myself? Because until we can really grapple with and meet these differences in ourselves with self-compassion, it's going to be really hard to just, well, okay, Kim and Amber are telling me, go ahead and do things my way in my business. There's still going to be something nagging at you of like, I need to push harder. I need to talk to more people. I need to be louder. I need to keep up with whatever the grind is. And I need to keep up with the algorithm in this way, whatever the trend currently is, because every day it's different, right? So just being aware of that shame piece as well, I think, is really important.
Yeah, I think that's such an important piece because, yeah, you can say, yeah, I embrace this, but are you full embodiment of yourself and accepting of that and giving yourself self-compassion for every piece that you have? And, even the dark points. And I think I really took a turn like 6 months ago when I decided that I'm going to accept every piece of me, including the darkness, because we all have some darkness inside of us and we can bring light to it, but you can't do that until you accept it. So really leaning into your self-compassion in every single piece of you and accepting, hey, I am an introvert. Looking back and going, oh, wow, I did a lot of things that were not aligned with me because I wanted to be somebody else. But realizing that was not where I needed to be. Where I needed to be was saying, hey, I'm an introvert. And as soon as I started saying, hey, I'm an introvert, people are like, ooh, me too. Can we hang out together?
Yeah.
I'm like, yes. Let's hang out quietly in our corners and talk to each other from afar. Let's do that. And I think when we start really bringing that self-compassion, and yes, we're still going to have shame because that is something that is continually going to be worked on. You can say, yeah, I do, but this is also how I'm going to help today.
Yeah.
And just taking that small baby step every day of accepting that. And then the shame will slowly diminish.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important piece that you just mentioned as well, Amber, is that I think a lot of times when we talk about things like this, people can have an idea in their mind of like, well, I just need to get that to go away entirely, right? I just need to get the shame to go away entirely, or the part of me that's in resistance to that to go away entirely. And I don't think that that's healthy. And I don't think that that is a goal for us to have, as you were even talking about, your shadow parts. And really, it's more of an integration of all of it than a making go away, right? It's more so, I always kind of use the metaphor of like, okay, cool. I can acknowledge that shame is here and it gets to be in the back seat, but it doesn't get to drive. Like, it's no longer getting to drive and determine my actions and the things that I'm doing or not doing. I can acknowledge it. I can have so much self-compassion for where it comes from, and it's no longer allowed to make my decisions. But trying to make it quote unquote go away is just another form of perfectionism and another way for us to sort of get tripped up and stall ourselves, in my opinion. So I think that's a really good point as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we just need to acknowledge it and say, hey, you can be here, you can hang out, but you don't get to have this say. Yeah. There are other pieces of me that are going to be more in control right now. So hang tight. Maybe you'll show up later.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So Kim, where can we find you in this online space?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram at Kim Kimball Coaching. Kimball is spelled Kimball. I know there are lots of different ways to spell it, so I like to spell it out. My website is kimkimballcoaching.com, so same spelling. And then I am on YouTube as well, Kim Kimball Coaching. I also have my own podcast called Sensitive with a period at the end that is on Apple and Spotify and YouTube. So all of the places.
Awesome. So I will have all the links down below in the show notes so you can quickly go find Kim and chat with her in the DMs one-on-one, where we like to hang out. And thank you so much for this conversation, Kim. There was so many good things. I feel like I'm going to have to listen to this a few times to catch all of the golden nuggets that happened in this episode. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.